Hi, I'm Kevin Drinkall.
Hi, and I'm Michel Nicolai, and we welcome you to Zyzone Networks podcast.
We've been in the network industry for over 15 years, and in these podcasts we want to try and untangle the world of networking, debunk some of those myths, explain some real-world examples along the way, to help you make better choices about selecting the right tech, product, and even help you guys build faster, more reliable, scalable networks, or just to keep your kids happy at home. Well, welcome back to another round of our podcast, and today we're going to talk about the challenges in connecting in hospitality. So this is a interesting topic. We talked about some of the other topics in the past, you know, like warehousing.
Warehousing. We did in the earlier episode, and I think that's worthwhile of showing what we can offer and what tips and tricks and what you can do in a hospitality environment. So let's start with some basics. What do you think?
But let's also welcome Hugh back again. He's come for another another round.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's always good to be here.
So let's talk about some of those for the easy, basic problems that actually, although we see them quite common, right? But actually, just so we kind of go back to the very basics and see where people kind of fall over. Sometimes you overcomplicate the problem, right? You try to look at too detailed, so DHCP is normally one of the first ones.
Yeah, we see this quite a lot, and this is something that's often overlooked, is actually the DHCP pool size and setup. Remembering or thinking or considering, should I say, the number of clients that are potentially going to connect to your network. This is key.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we see the kind of typical issue when we come through, right? They call it a Wi-Fi issue, but actually, a lot of the time it starts off with there's not enough IP addresses to allocate, right? So you should consider, not setting the lease to infinity.
Yeah, and of course, the standard network, what you set up by default on your firewall is normally a Class C network. That's what I call it. If you don't refresh the numbers, then at a point of time, no one can connect it anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, under let's say you use under Nebula, right? You can change these settings but if you're using it in standalone mode as well, you can also adjust these. And you should consider, depending on your size, you should obviously look at whether you're going to continue to use a Class C or whether you're going to look at using a Class B, right? So
or tweak the lease time,
at least,
so that's refreshed all the time.
Yeah, I mean, lots of times you find small deployments and they just basically keep the number for infinity and they never release it.
Yeah, and you've also got to take into the consideration how many clients connecting at one time as well. The server has a limit on it.
Yeah. So using DHCP, to hand out the IPs, obviously that's the standard way of doing things, so that every device gets a P and connects to the internet, and this is the go-to. But remember that actually one of the security risks in this element, if someone joins with a DHCP server, right? Especially on larger deployments, we see the potential for hacking where they come in and they distribute DHCP and hijack the traffic to another gateway.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the features, like for example in Nebula, the DHCP guard, right, to sort of protect them, and you can basically tell the network that this is the only server that's got DHCP in it.
Yeah, and let's not, obviously you talk about the hacking element, but this often happens by mistake. Someone just plugs something into the network innocently.
Another gateway,
and another gateway comes in, and suddenly it starts handing out other IP addresses, etc. So yes, there's always the hacking element, but there's also the accidental. So it's,
Yeah, but guests bring their own gateway to the room and mess up all your network.
Yeah, they bring a home router, right?
They bring everything into the room, right?
Of an IP,
Yeah, so it's pretty important. But I mean, it's, believe it or not, it's quite a common thing.
Yeah, we've seen it all too often.
And obviously, this brings a little bit onto this topic of the gateway itself, or the firewall, or the cybersecurity gateway. You need to be able to accommodate for your needs, and that differs by a lot of customers, right? So you should consider picking, a firewall, cybersecurity gateway that will be able to deliver that kind of element. And that leads me on to how another part of the network is where you should really consider segregating the network, right, into VLANs, to allow routing of different subnets and stuff like that.
And make sure that not all the users are using the same network, Of course, they're using the physical network, but you separate them. So the POS system is separate from the guest, is separate from the payment system, separate for the company kind of traffic.
So I think also when you look at the gateway, I think common features that you would see in a, I would say, more of a firewall. So if you're doing hospitality, you need to consider about not just using a basic router, right? It needs to be something more substantial that can A, take the bandwidth, B, can also have some level of security to not only protect the guests on the network, but also protect your own equipment as well. Like you mentioned, the POS system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the credit card system.
Yeah, so licenses like content filtering, application controls, etc. So again, you can bandwidth limit those applications. Things like connect and protect on our APs, again, take that security to the edge. So, they are critical parts of the network. Now, you might not want to put all the content filter restrictions on, but you want to be able to monitor it, and you want to be able to have that ability to do so if required and dependent upon the circumstance.
Yeah. So make sure you're not purchasing a plain gateway with nothing on that. Yeah, it's not sufficient to protect your business. So make sure that you're looking for a proper firewall with additional UTM services or other kinds of protection, so that you are better protected than just a firewall.
Yeah, and remember, most attacks or most kind of hacks or whatever we perceive to be coming from the outside of your network inwards, okay? Because you're the company. Remember, in a hospitality environment, you've got guests on the inside of your network. So these guys are on the inside of your network. So again, if the routing or security, you need to have this segregation and this policy and these application controls in place to stop this happening internally in your environment.
Yeah, because all those devices, they go all over the place. Yeah, they've been last week in this place and another week they've been in another place. So you have to make sure you take care of your guest network as well. Also, some protection on that part.
Yeah, I think a strong argument for standardization is always to, create the VLAN segregation in a network. And, we're not just talking about, the guest and the corporate network or the POS side, but also putting the devices themselves, like in our case, our network devices need to be in a management network away from, harm's way, etc. So because you don't want these devices to be compromised either, right? So they are in their own management network away. Then you're delivering services on top of it, like the client access or your POS system, etc. So I think by default, you almost, when you're planning out something in hospitality, you should at least think about how you segregate from design point of view, and this will eliminate a lot of the, I would say, problems further down the line as well, right? And like you said, customers, they are roaming around the network, right? So
they're using all kind of networks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and this brings us on to, of course, Wi-Fi, right? Which is by far one of the. So we talk a little bit about the security there, a little bit about the networking element, a little bit about controlling it, but actually, most clients are connected via wireless. So.
Yeah, and it's not just guests that are connected via wireless. A lot of IoT, a lot of digital signage, etc., are all connected via wireless. So again, another part of this is, obviously we talked about the security and the gateway, is making sure that the wireless network is designed not only for the number of clients, but also for the density of clients within your areas, within your hospitality space. And again, if they are going to roam across the network, as most wireless clients generally do these days, making sure that roaming is as seamless as possible.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on roaming. Yeah, because what do we consider roaming? Let's just talk on that one first, because there's a lot of misconception on roaming.
The term roaming, and there's another word that goes in there, which is seamless roaming. Okay?
Yeah, well, also there's several different standards, like the 802.11.r.
Let's not get into the standards.
But let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple.
But if you are interested in those kind of the roaming parts and the even the content filtering we discussed already, we have a few different podcasts that you can refer back to, right?
Yeah.
So
the roaming in this, as we talk about in the design of the network, is making sure that the client, although there might be a drop here, there, etc., doesn't have to interact, doesn't have to reconnect their client every single time they move around the building. Okay. And that allows, once I've connected, I stay connected. If I leave the building and come back again, I will reconnect.
Yeah, you have to think about the usage of Wi-Fi in hospitality has changed quite a bit, right? Because originally we used to think about, and we often talk about the coverage part, but this is actually more about the physical usage, right? It's about, today we originally built it for guests, but actually now more and more the ordering platform, when you walk into a restaurant nowadays, right? You're the client and you scan your QR code, or
the waiter is using smart devices to take your order.
Yeah. I mean, Hugh was telling me about his holiday, right? And they were wandering around with their little iPads ordering your drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. Means I don't have to get off the sunbed, right? And I just get a drink delivered to me. It's fantastic.
Definitely living the dream.
Yeah. So everyone relies on the Wi-Fi, not only the guests, but also the staff that is taking care of your drink. And heavily rely on that.
Yeah, and and the Wi-Fi design has moved, and it has done for a number of years now, moved from a coverage environment now into a density and making sure that the APs are covering the right density of clients within that area.
Yeah, when we call them density, we mean a number of client devices. Yeah, so just so everyone's on the same plane, right? And the other thing that often in hospitality is asked for is captive portal, right? Because a number of different ways of doing that, right? But,
do you want to use captive portal? It's always the first question.
Yeah. So, but also there are different types of captive portal, right? So, number one thing definitely in the early days of Wi-Fi, we used to get asked a great deal was, how can I capture the email address of somebody logging onto the network?
And then the question is, why do you want the email address and what are you going to use it for?
Yeah, exactly. So are you really going to extract the list and start emailing customers? Probably not. And when you do that, you need to start considering GDPR compliance.
100%.
And this goes into a whole new, topic completely, which, we could probably talk about.
And we're not going to talk about it here.
Absolutely not, no. Let's go back to the sunbed and the drinks.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds much better.
No, let's go back to captive portals and understand, the different styles of captive portals. Like say, do we just want to click through, or do we want one? Do we want to click through? Do we want to be capturing data? Do we want to be showing them anything from that captive portal?
Maybe T's and C's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great for it. So again, that captive portal absolutely has a place within the hospitality environment. Just taking a number of those considerations about what you want to do with it.
Yeah, we see more and more now, especially the bigger chains, right? They move towards terms and conditions and basically forward to their internal website, or page about their, that hotel. And I think this gives them the perfect opportunity to do the T's and C's, like you mentioned before, Michelle and Hugh, right? So this is, I think more and more common approach now than it was before, where you needed a password. We also, we support the voucher methodology. So if you need to generate ID, like an ID number, and you can hand them out with a time limit or something like that, then this is another option as well.
Yeah, and again, we support both an internal one on our Nebula platform, in its basic format, but we support a whole range of third-party portals as well.
Yeah, so if you do look to want to use analytics and stuff like that, we plug into a number of third-party ones, like you say, Hugh. So that's also another option as well. So, and also if you have many sites, might be a better option for those customers, not roaming, but are visiting lots of different sites, right? So,
but how about open network? What do we say about that? Because I would always recommend to put some kind of pre-shared key on it, then at least your data is encrypted. But you see still a lot of Wi-Fi networks to be open. And that's, I think quite dangerous. What is what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, in the past, other brands or other vendors, they struggled with performance issues when applying pre-shared keys, right? So, especially at higher density areas, I remember one of the brands, as soon as they applied any security whatsoever, the performance of the AP was like halved, right? Whether they openly admit that or not, I don't know, but we would see that, right? So often the argument was they use a captive portal as the authentication method, and
then some kind of security.
So, and I think if you're in a densely packed area, like you're in a city centre or something like that, then you want to try and make sure that the Wi-Fi is for you, right? So, or for your customers. So yes, the password is, if you're in the middle of nowhere, or you can't get anything, then it might not matter to you. So
also the clients also changed. The behaviour of the clients changed because of security issues and everything else. Once upon a time, the clients used to connect openly. You know, if they saw an open network, they would connect to it, right? Because it offloaded the bandwidth of the data network. But that's changed. You know, that doesn't happen anymore. You have to select that open network to connect to it. But of course, go back to the conversation, you know, do you want your own customers on that network? So therefore, you don't want to allow it to be open and free, you know, and easily connectable, etc. You want it to be easy connected, but with a password.
I agree. I fully agree.
I mean, you know, you wouldn't do it at home, right? There was no way you would have your home network open to it. So
it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
And not even with a captive portal.
No.
Or maybe I do that for the kids.
Or maybe if you just lower the bandwidth right down to nothing, then it becomes very frustrating.
So we should talk about bandwidth. Okay, so let's talk about...
But guys, we talk about captive portal, but what we do with the data, is that GDPR compliant? Are we allowed to do this? Or
if you're capturing password, if you're capturing email addresses and you have an intent to reuse them for marketing, then that's absolutely sits in GDPR compliance. So you should make sure that you do follow the rules and work out the process and the data processing element. We don't collect that information in Nebula or in our platforms. It may be in logs if they do use it to register, etc. But if you're gathering it for marketing purposes, then you absolutely need a process and a legal process to follow for this compliance. So that's why more and more I think people they avoid trying to do that, right? So,
sure. Yeah.
But let's go back to the bandwidth. Because
it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
It's all about, I think, about experience. Yeah. How people experience the Wi-Fi. Is it always available? When I need a website, is it there? And is it convenient to use? I think that's the main thing, that people want.
But I think when you talk about bandwidth, we've got several different elements, right? You've got the gateway element where you can, bandwidth manage, or even by application. In our firewall, certainly you can do by application.
Right? on your AP as well.
Yeah, we have bandwidth management per client. You also have the channel width in usage as well, right?
Yeah, and again, depending upon the density of the APs that you have in your environment or the wireless, around your building. So again, in a very built up city or town, you might have a lot of wireless around you. So therefore you actually want the connectivity to be important. So I would recommend lowering those channel widths right down to, the 20 megahertz. If there is more bandwidth available or more channel width available, then yes, obviously increase it up to the 40 or the 80, etc. But just take that consideration.
Yeah, I think when you're using in hospitality and you've got such a, if you are deploying densely packed areas,
absolutely.
You definitely need to consider how, in the end, you can't supply all those customers with the unlimited bandwidth anyway. So if you are intending on giving them, I would say, internet access or streaming video, whatever, you could definitely lower the bandwidth, the width of the channel.
The channel width,
because avoid so much complication.
Because ultimately it comes down to, within the hospitality involved, it comes down to, can I get connected? Can I get internet? Can I get to that website or that stream?
Experience is key in this one, not speed.
Yeah, and that
it's nice to have, but at the end, you want to have consistency on your Wi-Fi.
It comes down, doesn't it, when you look at Wi-Fi coverage versus the speed versus the reliability, and no one ever remembers speed or coverage.
No,
They
nobody.
always it's the experience they have.
They say they have great Wi-Fi over there.
Yeah, I think we
that's-
mentioned it in a previous podcast, and it's one that a wise man called Hugh Simpson gave me once. Is bad Wi-Fi is worse than having no Wi-Fi at all, right? So,
Sure. We all agree on that one.
Definitely.
yeah. So when you're thinking about Wi-Fi, in this element, you need to consider how are you going to deliver reliable connectivity. At the end of the day, that's all it's about, right?
Yeah, and it's whether you get connected. So that's it. People don't remember the speed.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it does what they wanted to do, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit of information that we've kind of gone through, and that. I mean, obviously the topic is vast. So, but I think this is a nice small introduction to the kind of challenges or network challenges in hospitality. So I think we should have a little bit of a roundup just to kind of, the key takeaways that I would definitely say from this discussion is DHCP, right? Check these things, right?
Yeah, and remember, there are tools available, in our software, like the Wi-Fi 8, who can help you and assist to figure out if you think you have any problems in this direction.
Also checks other things like DNS. And so
100%.
I wrote DNS down. If it's a problem with Wi-Fi, once you've got your IP connectivity, etc., and you've got access to the internet, then it's down to DNS.
Yeah. So you've got these. I would say the IP, the DNS, the gateway itself, right? So they just check the basics, right, and also make sure that the design allows you to scale or support the environment, right? The Wi-Fi, we did just discuss that just now, right? But the key is, making sure it's reliable for the client. Like I said before, they're not gonna remember that they got, over the 1 gig barrier. They're not gonna remember that because, let's be honest, most clients in this type of environment will never get to that. And of course, making sure it's reliable, whether that's, putting more APs in an environment is not always the answer. In fact, in most cases,
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse because you're not managing the channels, right?
And this comes down to the correct design and the correct setup of your channels and of your frequencies.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and one thing I would say, if you are deploying in challenging environments, you should consider the smart antenna technology like we have. And we have a whole another podcast on that, so I'm not going to talk about it. But that comes down to Wi-Fi planning, Wi-Fi design. So I think, if you've got a challenging environment, you should look at that. So.
And putting the right device in the right environment. We've got our in-room access points, we've got our smart antenna access points, and we've got our high-density access points as well. You don't need to roll out the same AP across the whole environment. Right AP, right space.
Yeah, exactly.
Right design.
And gets it in the right budget in the end. Because you cannot put high-density APs everywhere, right? It's just unreal. So, as much as we'd love everyone to buy it.
I was going to say, I'd love you to. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's not reality, right? And then, obviously, we've got the internet speed itself, right? Make sure you get the correct gateway and the correct sized network to support you. So VLAN in, routing, DHCP, DNS, the security from the security gateway.
Yeah, if you're going to offer the guest experience, and again we talk about experience in this and the reliability, etc. Internet speed, your internet speed that you've got out to the internet is key. Often, and again in the past we've seen it a lot where you're trying to run multiple clients, whether internal or external devices, over a very small bandwidth, and it just is not going to work, right? It is making sure that gateway and that speed is there.
Yeah, I mean, also you should consider gateway-wise as well, right? You've got whether you want redundancy internet connectivity or low balancing internet connectivity, then you should consider like even the LTE 5G products we support as an alternative, or being able to add multiple connections together. If you can't get the bandwidth from wherever you are, say you're in a more remote location, but you still need to provide that connectivity.
Yeah, load balance across multiple lower speed gateways is just as good as having your 1 gigs or your 10 gig internet connectivity.
So again, you plug in one of the 5G products, the routers, into our, that are out of our range, and plug them into the gateway, right? So, and load balance them, and again, you need a gateway to support it, right? And I think from a very basic level, like I said at the beginning, network segregation is just the design you should basically default to, so that you make sure that you put the products in one, the network devices themselves into one network. You put your access to, for your clients on another one, and, your POS, your credit card machines, whatever, on another one out of the way, right? And this means that by design, you will already have a level of security in place. So
yeah, and make sure, if you want to make it as easy as possible and as efficient possible to do your configuration, please have a look through our Nebula tools, because we offer a great software package to make it much more easier for you to do the hospitality deployment. We have a lot of things in there
there's so many
that can
features
help
in
you.
there.
That can help you. So
and also scaling if you want to do it on multiple sites, the same thing, etc. So anyway, so that's a lot of information and a very nice little roundup there from key takeaways that I think, we all kind of agree on, right? So thank you very much for joining, and we hope to see you in the next podcast.
Thank
see
you
you
very
next
much.
time.